salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to episode number 8. We've come now to the point to discuss a people that normally, when we talk about these kind of people that we're going to talk about today, we as Muslims have an aversion against them. We think, oh my God, these people were terrible. They did something extremely terrible, which is true. They did do something extremely terrible in the 13th century. In 1258, the Mongols, they did attack Baghdad, the center of Islam, center of the world at that time, world civilization and Islamic civilization, which was both the same that time in the 13th century. And they did destroy one of the most advanced cities in the world that time, one of the most advanced people in the world at that time. And they were extremely cruel with the way they dealt with other people. But we are talking about the 13th century now, guys. We should not forget that. The 13th century was not necessarily a century which looked into human rights and which looked into people behaving towards each other and all this stuff. So this is quite a cruel time that we're talking about, and this fits actually with these people coming out. And many people who survived that time or who were living during that time, the 13th century, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, when they talk about the destructive elements of the Mongols themselves, they only had bad things to say about them. They even expected them to be actually Gog and Magog, which is describe people who are described in the Quran. Now, the Mongols themselves, let's go back a little bit to build up the element of what really happened. If we're talking about the Mongols actually nomadic pagan people from Asia, okay, and being shamanists, being people who were worshipping the spirits.
This video is sponsored by the Muqaddima program.
For nearly 7 centuries, Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddima has been read and studied by scholars and students of history, sociology, politics and economics as the single most authoritative and astounding work of classical scholarship in the field of history.
Embark on an enlightening educational venture led by Muslim scholars and teachers delving into Islamic history, sociology, economics and beyond. Engage with cutting-edge learning cues and multimedia components, allowing for a deeper understanding of the topics. Distinguish between the lies and the truths of the narratives told, between reliable and unreliable sources. Equip yourself with the skills to conduct deep research and build confidence to combat Islamophobia. Come and strengthen your Muslim identity today. Grab the course in the video description.
Okay, and one of the most famous of them was, of course, Genghis Khan, who united the Mongols, actually brought them together. SubhanAllah, this is quite important to see that, again, as Ibn Khaldun mentions in his Muqaddima, people were brought together on a common idea and common ideology, and a united ideology. Asabiya, as he calls it basically in the Muqaddima. So there was a commonality despite them not being Muslims. The Mongols, again, as I said, were pagan people. They did not have the belief in Allah, and still they came together, and Genghis Khan managed to bring them together and to actually create a country or a nation or a territory that was one of the most, if not even the most expanding territory in the world. And this is extremely important to see. So the most extensive empire in history, as is described actually, was created by the Mongols. Genghis Khan in the 13th century, the beginning of the 13th century, between 1206 and 1227, he, as he describes himself and his people were describing him, he was sent to earth to, quote, rule all peoples with God's Tengris, as they called him, power. So he was sent to earth to rule all peoples with God's power, subhanAllah. So he was actually sent to earth to do God's work, or do God's work. So they gave him so much power, and they made him such a very important person they looked up to, who of course had a lot of might at that time. He, as mentioned, created the most extensive empire in history, from Eastern China to Eastern Europe. Massive. Imagine Asia being the largest continent already as it is, was basically nearly entirely in the Mongols' hands. And they were not a people who had a high civilization. They were not a people who left a lot behind from themselves. Again, something like an empire which was administered by some kind of big civilization. No, they were just nomadic people who were shamanists and who spread throughout the world. In 1217, some Mongol merchants were passing through Khwarizm lands in Central Asia and got murdered. Now, Genghis wanted revenge. So Genghis Khan, during that time, he was alive, but he was just in Asia at that time, and it's said that based on this history, on this story, that some merchants were attacked and killed. Genghis wanted revenge and started expanding the empire to the west, towards Europe, towards Eastern Europe. On the way to Europe, and with the extension and expansion of the empire, Mongols became many different religious type of people. Some of them became Buddhists, some even Christians, some Jews, and some later Muslims. So we're talking about a people who they could easily adjust to their surrounding and easily accept a religion of people whom they submitted. But in general, there was a law, a main law that was followed by these people. It was called the legal code Yasa. And the Yasa was followed by these Mongols, supported freedom of religion, by the way. So they were absolutely free to become Buddhists if they wanted to become Jews or Christians, whatever. So it didn't restrict the Mongols, and that's quite advanced actually for the 13th century. It did not restrict the Mongols to a specific religion. The Mongols could easily adapt to change and would switch from one religion to another. Genghis and his brothers, though, remained shamanists. Hulagu's sons supported Buddhism, but in 1295, Ghazan Khan, Hulagu's great-grandson, formally accepted Islam in 1295, towards the end of the 13th century. It's said in history books that these Mongols were ruthless and destructive. They were depopulating many cities and towns and devastated farmlands by spreading salt on fertile land. They destroyed the sophisticated and advanced technology of the underground water canals, the qanats as they are called. They were set by the Muslims to irrigate the fields. Imagine that if we look back and we remember that the Muslims had a very advanced technology with regards to agriculture, and in general, very advanced technology, very advanced people. That time, these Mongols basically destroyed rather than built civilization. When in 1253, Hulagu Khan, Genghis' grandson, moved westwards to fight the Shiite Ismailis and the Abbasids in Baghdad, he actually found a high civilization, and there was not really a lot that he could face. The only thing that they could do is destroy, and that's what they did also until 1258, when they basically destroyed Baghdad. And that was, we can say, formally the end of the first, or for some people, the second phase of the Abbasids. Persian historian Ala ad-Din Ata-Malik Juwayni, who lived between 1226 and 1283, so exactly during the time of the expansion of the Mongol Empire, accompanied Hulagu Khan on his campaigns in Persia, Baghdad, and other places against the Ismailis. And he gave us actually a unique insider's view of Mongol culture. So it is something extremely important to see. We learned about the Mongols because of this historian, and that's what we see a lot, by the way, with Muslim historians, or with historians from that part of the world, Persia and other places as well, who have left us a lot of very useful and very unique materials behind to find out about how these people actually really were, who they were, and what the culture was all about. Because despite the fact that they were destructive, and despite the fact that the Mongols did a lot of bad things, there were of course some elements of the culture which were still positive, no doubt about it. In the middle of the 13th century, Mongol Khan moved southwards towards China. So, as we said, from East China all the way to Eastern Europe, basically, the empire developed in such a way that people thought these people were Gog and Magog. The Abassid Al-Musta'sim, the Caliph Al-Musta'sim, who was at that time the ruling caliph in the mid of the 13th century, when Baghdad was destroyed, attacked by the Mongols, fought the Mongol leader Hulagu Khan in Baghdad, but had to surrender and was killed. The entire population got massacred, by the way. Okay? The entire population of Baghdad got massacred. The destruction of Baghdad was absolutely unimaginable. But again, I would like to tell you a small story, actually, what I read and what I heard, that we should not only look at the destruction that the Mongols created and the anger that they had in them and the way that they were behaving towards other people. We should also look at why did they turn against the Muslims so much? Why did they attack Baghdad? It's said again that basically there was a story about Mongol merchants who were traveling throughout Asia, and they passed through Baghdad, and the people of Baghdad at that time were extremely arrogant towards them and felt that they could look down on them and make fun of them. And again, another story describes how the caliph of that time actually ignored them totally and even killed them. Okay, so based on this, understanding the anger and the revenge that the Mongols, the Hulagu Khan, had against the Muslims is, I think, pretty understandable, okay, when you deal with your people, with somebody's people like this, of course. So we have to look into these both elements as well. So it seemed to be like this, that the people of Baghdad, the Muslims who were running such a massive empire, highly civilized and advanced technologically, seemed to be, especially the rulers, seemed to be extremely arrogant, looking down on other people. So that is something that we have to look at. As we said, it is very important to look at both sides, at many sides. History has a lot of sides, okay? And we don't want to just look at the victors who wrote history. 2 years later, after the destructive time of Baghdad, in the year 1260, on the 3rd of September, another very important battle happened, which we as Muslims should be proud of and should be looking at to take lessons from. So the Battle of Ain Jalut in Palestine, the Battle of Ain Jalut did what? It showed that once a people become Muslim, they have to actually consider other Muslim people their brethren. Okay? They have to fight together with them against maybe their own blood. And that's what happened in the Battle of Ain Jalut. The Battle of Ain Jalut teaches us that Muslim Mongols, okay, this is extremely important to see, or Mongols accepted Islam, and they went to the side with the side of the Mamluks, who were the Muslim rulers of Egypt at that time. They together fought against other Mongols, the Mongols who were not Muslims, and they won. So there was a big victory for the Muslims, and it was not only the victory, as people keep saying, the Mamluks, no, it was also the victory of the Muslim Mongols who fought against their non-Muslim Mongol cousins or brothers or whatever they were. So it is important to see that. And I think the Muslims of that time haven't understood Islam much better than we do nowadays, okay, or many other rulers did before them, after them, during that time. And this is a lesson that I would like to leave behind with you now with this episode, that the Mongols, despite them being cruel and ruthless people, still once they accepted Islam, there were still people who understood Islam and followed it properly, mashallah. And again, if you want to know more about these people and about others, take a look at our courses that we offer. And one of them is, of course, going deeper into the dynasties and empires, the Islamic dynasties and empires that actually we should know more about than what we do nowadays. Jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
For almost 7 centuries, the Muqaddima has been widely regarded as the earliest and most authoritative and seminal text in the fields of sociology and history, outlining the core principles and methods needed to evaluate and convey history with a more objective and critical eye. Its celebrated author, Ibn Khaldun, pioneered a revolutionary approach to the study of history and is considered by some historians to be one of the most influential thinkers in his field. Now, for the very first time, students of Islamic history will have the rare and unique opportunity to study this monumental and classical work of genius under the tutelage and guidance of experts in the field of research and education. We offer a wide and varied range of learning experiences as part of the program, with options for students to participate in person during our on-site lessons in London or remotely via our private and secured live streaming platform. Classes are delivered on a fortnightly basis, and all students enrolling onto the program shall receive a complete learning resource pack, including coursebooks, timetables, and admission onto the online student portal. The annual program is available to students as a certificate or a diploma package, with varying subjects and module components, as well as a practical assessment unit that will culminate in the launch of student-led history projects and publications, following a panel presentation before a group of assessors. This is a unique opportunity to discover and immerse yourself into the world of Islamic historiography under the tutelage and guidance of experts who will assist you in acquiring the core skills and competencies necessary to conduct your own research and launch your own initiatives. To find out more about the Muqaddima program or to enlist yourself onto this unique and fantastic learning journey, please visit our website at www.Al-Muqaddima.com, where you will be able to download our program prospectus, register your interest by submitting an application directly via the online enrollment form.